your kids, when I was watching the Jey Uso thing where he wins the Royal Rumble, I immediately thought about your kids and how they would have responded to that. Because a lot of adults are very unhappy for whatever reason that Jey Uso won this match. And I go back to when I was at the second ever Netflix Raw in San Jose. We were talking to some people and we noticed that there's just more kids than ever, or than there's been in a long time. And the couple of kids that we did talk to, Jey Uso was their favorite wrestler. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. They didn't say John Cena. They didn't say Rey Mysterio. They didn't say CM Punk. It was Jey Uso. So through the eyes of your kids, like, what did they think about Jey Uso winning the Rumble?
They like Jey Uso, but they wanted Cena because Cena is like the end all be all, for that generation.
Yeah.
Like that's it's the equivalent. I don't know what that would be the equivalent of. It didn't exist, but like to me, that would probably be if I was my son's age and Bruno came back, and Bruno was put in a position where like everybody knew who he was. He wasn't erased. How would we have felt? They loved it though. They loved the Rumble. They loved the Women's Rumble. Again, it's a different category of viewership. But Jey Uso really connects with the younger generation, and that's the thing. When you're coming out with Travis Scott and Quavo, it says something. You're connected to a very different audience that you and I may not be.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get the Travis Scott connection. I get the Quavo connection. I was watching the Grammys this weekend, and I was noticing like, oh, who's kind of, who's interesting right now for young people. Obviously, Kendrick wins Record of the Year, so there is an audience that I think connects with Jey Uso very well. I specifically have been calling for Jey Uso to gain some prominence for like the last 2 or 3 years, only because I just find him to be like the coolest dude. Like when you watch wrestling and you see like CM Punk or you see John Cena or you see Roman Reigns or you see Seth Rollins, those guys are almost like aliens in a sense. Like
yeah.
Roman seems kind of cool actually, but he doesn't show a lot of his personality outside of wrestling.
Roman's cool,
but
Seth Rollins is an alien. I get it.
Yeah, he's like a weird dude. But
yeah.
When I see the Usos, when I see Jay and Jimmy, I go, oh, those are dudes I would have hung out with in high school. Exactly. That's who those guys are to me. And same with maybe not Fatu, even though I have met Fatu before and have hung out with him for a few minutes. But Fatu just kind of reminds me of people in from my area. If we're going to a certain section of the Bay Area, I'm like, yep, that's Jacob Fatu right there. So to me, the Jey Uso seems to be someone who I'm like, oh, I would love to hang out with that dude and chit chat with him about whatever, because he's just a cool guy. And so that's how I perceive it. But again, when you're in this WWE where you have all of these possibilities, Cena, Punk, Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, Cody, and then they choose Jay to win this match, I thought it spoke a lot about their faith in what the current fan base, where they can also connect with the current fan base.
Jim Valley with the comment of the night. This is the worst OnlyFans ever.
I think Jim clicked on the wrong link is what happened.
Yeah, Jim. No. That's the other tab. That's the other tab on top of the browser. Not this one. The great Jim Valley. I gotta say though, you look at the characters and you're right. A lot of these characters are cartoons. And I do like that if he does beat Gunther, right, and Cody retains the title on his side, you have a contrast of very different people holding a title. I was talking to Joel Pearl from Fightful this morning about this, on how you look at Gunther and he's always in a suit and he's always, the dignified pro wrestling world champion. And Cody kind of represents that same exact thing, the heritage of professional wrestling. It's nice to have somebody that is a whole different character and look that appeals to a very different generation like Jey Uso winning the title. I think this is a nice experiment. I don't know if he would have a successful world championship run, but dude, they're so hot right now. Why not try it?
Yeah, this is what Dave and Brian were talking about last night, which is you're at a time and place in the current landscape of WWE where you can take these chances. Like, if they were desperate, if this was 3 years ago and they were desperate to connect and they were desperate to get fans back, maybe you don't take the big swing. Maybe you're a little bit more measured in it, especially for the Royal Rumble. And I think that that's probably what most of what the fan base is reacting to is, this is how the Royal Rumble is supposed to work, and you guys threw us a curveball, and now what we were thinking was going to happen is not happening. You can take these risks, and I don't even know how big of a risk it is, because Jey Uso himself, is he going to be your work rate world champion? Probably not, though he does have good matches. But guess who he beat in this match? Maybe the worst work rate champion that they've had, in a long time, in John Cena, and that's not a shot at John.
At the same time, the most successful world champion they've had. He's one of the most successful world champions this company has ever had. Bruno, Hogan, Austin, Dwayne, him.
Now there is a subsection of people who still believe that he was the chosen guy in a failed long-term experiment. Now, I don't know how much of that I believe, but I still hear from people who are like, nothing sunk WWE further and more quickly than them going with John Cena as the top guy for so many years. I mean, we'd have to sort of analyze that in a little. I understand the point, which is coming off of Austin and Rock and Triple H, you needed to make a new guy, and the audience was changing. And so then you lean into Cena, and then he's cheered immediately, but then soon the crowd is turning on him, and they don't adjust him to the crowd. They just keep giving you the same John Cena. I'm sure that turned off some fans. Would those fans have been turned off anyways?
I was one of those.
Were you really?
One of those fans. I was there. There is a. I'm trying to think what years this would be. Post Benoit, we've spoken about this. Post Benoit, I was very turned off. It just the air was sucked out of the room when you tune in, and then they shifted, they pivoted into the PG content, and I was out from like maybe 08, 09, 10, and then probably to 11, and I came back in 11. But I was still watching, but I was so turned off to it because I got tired of seeing John Cena as the guy. He did not appeal to me. He was not my era, but I also understood that, listen, every single kid that I knew at that point had a John Cena shirt on.
Yeah.
And that's what mattered. And they went to a whole different level. It was not good. The company was not good then. Is John Cena the reason for that? Was he the catalyst for it? I have to tell you, I felt the same about Randy Orton's title reign. I did not love Batista's title reign. I just think that the company was in a decline more than anything else.
Yeah, they were in the shadow of these giant stars, and you're trying to make new stars. And the fact of the matter is, the one who they really thought was going to be that guy was Brock Lesnar, but then he got burnt out and unhappy, and he bailed.
He left.
And so,
yeah, he left.
It wasn't Brock and Cena and Orton. It was just, Cena and Orton, and then Edge, kind of snuck back in. So, yeah, I don't know if I don't blame it entirely on John. There are some people,
but I totally
who think
understand
he's overrated. Yeah,
no, totally understand that. I totally understand that, and you're right. Generationally speaking, you and I came from a very different generation. Things went really fast, really aggressive, and then you were given, a cookie cutter Vince McMahon world champion to many people. Sometimes I felt that way. Sometimes I didn't. Sometimes you watch his matches and you think, man, he's so good, even though he doesn't do much. But it depends on what you're looking for. He's not a work rate guy, so he didn't have to be. Maybe that's why he's still wrestling now.
You know what book I'm reading is the 1984 Observer book that Dave put out last year. And you think about this, 1984.
I got it right here.
Think about how Yeah, think about how long ago that is, right? Think about how much wrestling has changed from then until now. It's like a completely different thing. I was reading one of the issues, and at this point, Dave's not even publishing weekly yet. I think he's still publishing every month. And do you know the guy who gets credit for the star rating system in wrestling?
No, who?
So Jim Cornette's friend, and I think also he was Dave's friend, a guy by the name of Norm Dooley. Dave said Norm Dooley gave out the first, not only created it, but also gave out the first +5 rating in rating matches. So this guy Norm Dooley, he's in the book as he's reading, and so he's writing. Dave used to publish notes from readers, and so I saw the name Norm Dooley in this book. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's the guy who created the star system. And then I texted Dave. I was like, what's going on with Norm Dooley? And Dave's like, I have no idea. So I think he's still around though. I don't know. I don't think anybody's been in contact.
I was just seeking. I was just trying to see, and it looks like he might be. I did not know that. That's a fun fact.
That's a fun fact. But anyway, so just thinking about the business that you and I have been covering and all the changes from the beginning, show number 1 of this show until now, it seems like it's changed. It's turned over completely. It's like such a different business. So then for me, going back and reading about 84, it's almost like a foreign language, but I'm getting a kick out of it. So, but it just shows you, how things change and what the Rumble was in 1992 when Ric Flair won it versus what you do with it today. Like there's discussions going on in my Discord about, does this make Jey Uso a top guy, or does this act, or if he doesn't become a top guy, does it lessen the draw of what the Rumble winner should be? Like there's lots of conversation. Look, we're wrestling fans. We're going to go into the into the weeds, shall we say? That term got got some popularity over the last couple weeks. But we're going to go into the weeds on all of this stuff, and it's just fascinating to see what comes out of it. I have no idea what's in Triple H's head about where he believes Jey Uso is going to be in a month. Though I will say, and I wanted to ask you about this too. Let's say Jey Uso is winning the world title. He's got to close one of the nights, right?
I mean, does he? Yeah. How big is the women's match going to be? Because right now, Charlotte is, that was not a good response for a babyface.
No,
that one. I guess he would have to close night 1. I know, me too. I did feel bad for her. I don't know. I don't know if they close, unless you got, if Becky Lynch comes back and challenges Rhea Ripley for the title, or Tiffany Stratton. Do you put that as the main on that show, or whatever Roman is doing? Would that be the main event on one of those shows? If you have a triple threat, I don't know, I'm throwing an idea, triple threat match between Punk, Punk and Rollins and Roman. Is that a closer? Is The Rock maybe going to do something? Does that close it? There's a lot of questions. I mean, we don't know.